There's a place, a school, an institution where a professor resides. Listen to words of Professor Buitron.
I'm Professor Buitron, and I'm back at you with Monday and questions and viewpoints. And I want to thank everybody for subscribing. We've had a great upsurge, and we have great questions coming of age. We got folks asking questions, not only technical questions, but historical questions. And here's one. And just to show some light, because a lot of folks do not understand that at one particular time, there were two other disciplines, fighting disciplines, which was, I'm taking 1978 backwards, okay? There was Savate and there was Boxe Francaise. And there were two distinct pugilistic styles of the French. Okay, there were others that were involved, but we're talking about those two. And we're not talking about the weapons of it, because both had canne, both had lutte parisienne, some had panache, some did not. Some in certain aspects of the weapons, they had certain weapons, the other ones did not. So, well, anyway, we're talking about the fisticuffs, hands and feet, boxing in the ring, boxing for the street. That a lot of individuals go out there and say, in this book that I have, it doesn't talk about that. This book you have, it doesn't mention that word, but they existed. There were schools that solely taught Boxe Francaise clubs, style, which is a style is a club of Savate or school of Savate. You had sans that only taught Boxe Francaise, and you had others that only taught Savate. And that's just the way it was. You had distinct differences between both. You had kicks that were different. You had not only kicks that were different, you also had movement, traditions, pedagogy that were different. There were different strikes. You know, Savate was a little bit more aggressive, and Boxe Francaise was a little bit stepping off to the sides, while Savate used angulation within the footwork, and the other one used more foot placement. And you have to live it for you to understand it. Well, when I was around in living in France, because I lived in France, I trained in Chef and so on and so forth, I saw and I felt, and I was around those clubs that were of Boxe Francaise in nature, those clubs that were of Savate in nature. But the question that I was asked was, were there any fights that depicted a practitioner of Savate against a practitioner of Boxe Francaise? There is one. You can find it in YouTube. You can find it in some of the videos that are out there. You can find several of them. You have Dominique Daclouin Hervé, who was my partner, was my sparring partner, my peer, my older brother under our professor Paturel. Paturel, he was one of the professors of Paturel, just like I am. So was Mark Senni, Denny Rocca, Richard Sila. You know, we came from Paturel, and Dominique Daclouin to me was, out of all those that you put your hands on and you sparred with and you hit with each other and you were trained with, he was the most respectful individual. Many were respectful, but even when you're fighting, it was just good to see that clean movement and that decisiveness, that evasiveness within the movements, within the kicks. I learned a lot from that. You know, I put the gloves on Dominic, periodic, basically once or twice a week. You know, we did a couple of rounds, and it was for years. And well, there's a fight between him and Andre Panza. Andre Panza, a great fighter, great professor, great element of Boxe Francaise. So you had Dominic that came out of Savate, and Andre Panza that came out of Boxe Francaise, meeting together in the ring. It met several times. And I'm going to show some footage of the video, and you can see the tenacity of both fighters. You can see that they were both the pinnacle of both different pedagogies, the schoolings of, but they met in the ring for Boxe Francaise Savate. Boxe Francaise Savate had already been established. This fight was probably 87, 86, 87, if I'm not mistaken. Differences in control of foot placement to placement of the body when you're moving in Boxe Francaise. You can see the little work. You can see that energy that's inside. But those are fine. You also see another fight between Dominic Daclouis and Gilles Ledwigo. Gilles Ledwigo coming out of Boxe Francaise. And of course, Dominic coming out of Savate. And Dominic wins. But, these were the time frame where the development of Boxe Francaise Savate, what you see back here, what you see in the ring, what you see now, what is being taught now, was being developed. And people need to understand that. Before that, there were two different schools. Up to about 1996, the schools, the clubs had different stylistic approaches to each. Each one moved differently. It was a different type of belt. You can see a fighter and can say, well, that fighter comes from Saint Denis, that comes from Bobigny, that comes from Clichy, that comes from Real Malmaison, that from Incept, and so on and so forth. So you knew right away the way they moved. That comes from Bellier. You knew how they moved. And understanding that then is a lot different to now, because now everything is very cookie cutter. Everything's the same thing. Right now it's a formula. It's Boxe Francaise Savate. It's still the pinnacle of pugilism, in my understanding, my opinion. And you have a lot of people that would say, no, it didn't happen like that. So really, I do not care. I lived it. I saw it. And you cannot express yourself if you were not there. If you saw something from a magazine or from an article, you're getting an opinion. And this is not an opinion. This is what happened. This is what I saw. I saw it there. In the 90s, you started seeing a lot of great fighters. Things were changing. Everybody was kind of coming out of the club holding the torch, whether you were from Savate or Boxe Francaise, and you were fighting within Boxe Francaise Savate. So you had different clubs accepting that pedagogy that was coming in. That's why the French Federation had a lot of perfection of technique workshops everywhere. Believe me, I was in many of them. We saw many of them. Not only did we help, we taught, we practiced, we were all involved. It was a great time. Two great fighters, two great professors, two capable representatives of French pugilism, Savate, Boxe Francaise Savate. It was Enjoy the Fight, which is Andre Panza with Dominic Daclouis. And you kind of figured out yourself. Dominic is wearing white and Andre Panza is wearing red. Keep those questions coming. I'm getting a lot of questions about certain professors. Of course, my professor, Papadel, which we'll talk about. I've had Richard Sila, my brother, my trainer in INSEP. He about his story. We'll talk a little bit about him and how he was. And Francois Pinacchio, Sylvain Postal, Camille Shoref. There's many that have been asked. But like I said, keep sending those questions. Keep moving forward. Till next time.
Come train at the best kept secret of Laredo, Buitron Academy, 956-401-4868, Savate.biz.